Bass fishing has a lure problem. It's not that there are too many options, it's that most anglers never fully learn the ones that they already own. So today I'm breaking down 5 lures that cover almost every bass situation you'll run into. The Ned rig, which is our finesse tool for tough days when fish won't bite. The Texas rig, and this is weightless. I think this is the most important soft plastic setup you'll ever learn. We have the Squarebill. It triggers reaction bites around shallow cover. We have the Spinnerbait, and the Spinnerbait is really your best tool for search and covering a lot of water quickly, finding active fish. And then lastly, we have the jig for heavy cover and bigger fish. Now, a quick disclosure before we hit the water, I will be using this reel right here. KastKing sent this reel out for testing. As always, I'm going to tell you exactly what I found, the good and the bad.
As we work through these baits, I'll be using 2 rods. For the Texas rig and for the Ned rig, I'm going to be using this moderate fast light rod. Once we move to the spinnerbait, the Squarebill, and the jig, I'll be moving up to a medium fast rod. So we're starting out with a Weightless Texas rig. If someone asked me what is the one bait you would want every beginner to learn, it would be this bait. And the reason being is it teaches you 3 key things. It teaches you bottom detection, bite detection, and line watching. And then as we're going through this, I'm going to be talking about this reel a little bit. So we're casting this weightless worm first. Let's see how it casts. Casts beautifully. And now the way I work a weightless worm or a Texas rig most often is I'll take up my slack, keeping my rod just above about 3 o'clock on the clock, and then I just raise it up. And that moves that worm off the bottom and lets it flutter back down. I'll let it set for a few seconds after it hits the bottom, and then I'll repeat. And depending on how active the fish are, that might get faster or slower. This morning, we're going to be working it fairly slow. So just lifting my rod tip up slowly, letting that worm sit. And you get a lot of bites on the fall, when the worm first hits the water, and even when it's just sitting there. So bites usually don't happen when you're reeling it in. And the bites on this are going to feel like ticks. Sometimes they feel kind of mushy or heavy, but you're rarely going to get anything that feels like a fish just slammed it. There we go. Man, pulling him through these weeds is tough. Well, there we go. Little guy on the weightless worm. Now, a couple key things about this reel, I said I would talk about it a little bit. It has a titanium spool, which is what gives us the ability to cast these super light lures. That titanium spool is ultra light, giving it the ability to start up very quickly. Another thing about this reel being one of KastKing's top reels is that it does have an aluminum frame. An aluminum frame can be important depending on what you're doing. If you're catching a lot of large fish, if you're working around cover, what can happen over time is the graphite or plastic frames will flex. And when they flex, the gears get misaligned. And if you're reeling with the gears slightly misaligned, over time, those gears start to get kind of worn, and then the reel gets this rough feeling. A lot of people will say the reel feels geary. And so having a aluminum frame prevents that because the frame doesn't flex. There we go. There she is. Stuck in the grass again. Pulling through that grass is tough. There we go. Another little fish on the weightless worm. Nice little guy. All right, this is your Ned rig. Your Ned rig is for when conditions get truly tough. Post cold front, heavily pressured water, fish are lethargic, midday. That's when we're throwing the Ned rig. All right, let's see how it casts. We're casting under 1/8 of an ounce. Ah, very nice. Now, the way I work a Ned rig, I got a bite immediately. That was awesome. The way I work a Ned rig is I just let it set out there, and then I'll give it a little twitch. Nothing big. Let it set. Maybe give it a little drag. Let it sit. There we go. Oh, man. Little fish there. All right, so we have the Squarebill here. The Squarebill is really a reaction bait, and what you're trying to do with the Squarebill is you're trying to bang it along a dock, piling, rocks, and I normally walk this shoreline here, but this lake is way up. So I'm gonna throw it around this dock here and see if we can get us a reaction. This is a very rocky bottom. Let's see how it performs with this reel. Definitely casts well. And the Squarebill itself, just pulling it through open water, oh man, had one right there. It was a nice little strike and I missed it. Talking. You don't typically want to pull the Squarebill through open water. You want it to hit on rock, on some sort of cover, because that's what causes the strike, that reaction. It bumps off something and fish sees it and grabs it. And you'll notice I've moved up to a heavier rod because we've moved from the finesse style baits to standard type baits. All right, we've got our spinnerbait here. Spinnerbait is our search bait. It lets you cover a lot of water pretty fast. And the great thing about spinnerbait is it's really easy to work. You cast it out and you reel it in. You can slow it down or speed it up, but it is a super easy bait to work. Spinnerbait is also kind of weedless. It's not totally weedless, but because of the little angle it makes there, it cuts through weeds pretty well. Do you see that right there at the, he was chasing it. There we go. There we go. On the spinnerbait. There we go. Another fish on the spinnerbait. There's a fish there, I know there is. There we go. It's another one. This is a little bit bigger fish here. Well, let's try not to lose him. It's a decent little fish. All right, we've got our jig now. Jig is fairly weedless. It has this weed guard right here. A jig is one of those baits that more often than not catches bigger fish. Let's see how it casts. Casts very well. Now, there's multiple ways to work a jig. Most people just kind of hop it along the bottom. But the key to a jig is to let it set every now and then. Hop it a little bit and then let it sit. Oh, there he is. Ah, missed him. And a jig is a great bait because it imitates a lot of things. It imitates a bluegill, it imitates a crawfish, and it often catches bigger fish. And the bite on a jig can vary. It can be very similar to what the bite on a soft plastic feels like, where you just feel like the tap, tap, tap. It can also feel heavy or like you're stuck in mud. You can also see your line just swimming off. But it can also absolutely be hammered by a fish. There we go. That's a bigger fish. Oh, and in the moss again. There we go on the jig. That's a respectable little fish there. Like I said, the way I'm working this jig, I just pop it, let it pause, pop it, let it pause. There we go, another one on the jig. Pull in a little bit of drag. Come here, old boy. Number 2 on the jig.
So after fishing these 5 core lure styles, here's the honest read on this reel. Most traditional bait casters start struggling once you get below about 1/4 of an ounce. This one didn't. It handled everything from around 1/8 of an ounce, maybe a little bit less than that, to 5/8 of an ounce without any issues at all. That's probably a lot to do with that titanium spool, which probably genuinely helps. The casts, they start up quickly, they feel smooth, and the reel handles the light lures more comfortably than most standard bait casters I've personally used. Now, some of that does come down to rod setup too. For the lighter finesse baits, I was using this moderate fast, light action rod, and once I moved into heavier lures, I switched to a medium fast setup. And that matters. Your rod has to properly load during the cast. Even a great reel won't perform the way it should if the rod isn't matched to the lure weight. And I think that's something a lot of anglers overlook. The braking system on this thing is called the Halo Vortex, and it's very good. I had a couple of tiny overruns here and there, but no real backlashes, just a few small loops that, you know, you pick out quickly. The reel is also incredibly smooth. There was no geary feeling at all at any point when I was using it. And honestly, the overall smoothness is really closer to some of my higher end reels than I expected at this price point. Now, a limitation of this reel currently is its gear ratio. The reel is currently only available in 7.2:1. So if you like building out a full setup, a slower cranking reel, an all-purpose reel, which this is, right, and a faster burner, you don't have those options with this reel currently. Now, the other thing I'll touch on is long-term durability. I can't speak to that yet. I haven't had the reel long enough. It's also a relatively new reel from KastKing, so don't know. But as an out-of-the-box fishing experience, I came away from this reel genuinely impressed. The reel does bridge the gap between a traditional baitcaster and a more finesse-oriented casting system better than most standard baitcasters do. Now, it's not a true BFS reel, let's be clear there, but it gets surprisingly close while still handling traditional bass techniques and baits perfectly well. So if you want one reel that can fish both lighter and heavier presentations without fighting the setup, honestly believe you'd be hard pressed to go wrong here. You just want to make sure that you have a couple of different rods. You need a lightweight rod and you need a medium heavy rod to handle that, you know, lure range. So if you want to check out the ALTI Elite for yourself, I'll put the links down in the description. You can also use the code NICHE10 to save an additional 10% off this and anything else on KastKing's website. And if you use those links and codes, it does really help and support the channel. It lets me keep making videos like this, so I definitely appreciate that. But either way, hopefully the video gave you a better understanding of these lure styles and how to fish them. If you had to add one more essential bass lure to this list, what would it be? Drop it in the comments. I'm honestly curious and I respond to every comment. And if you want a deeper breakdown of the core lures I believe every beginning bass angler should learn, that video's right here. No hype, no gimmicks. We'll see you next time.